Hi, I'm State Senator Joe Markley from Southington, up here at the Capitol on Tuesday afternoon, where we just finished a rather short Senate session. I thought it might be worth mentioning to those of you who are interested where we stand in the General Assembly session this year. You know, we started out in January and we finished up on June 3rd. The first part of the legislative session largely involves committee work, and the majority of the committees now have finished their work. There's what's called the JF deadline, the joint favorable deadline, the end of a committee's ability to report bills out for further consideration. And that deadline has ended for all the committees except for the two most important ones, Appropriations and Finance. So now we're in the frame of time when the bills are starting to arrive in the House and the Senate. And today in the Senate, we took up a small number of, I might say, relatively inconsequential bills. As I've said on other occasions, we pass a lot of things which really are just housekeeping, things that in my heart I believe we shouldn't have to do as a matter of statute, but that has become the procedure over the years, and if it's a favorable thing to do or a harmless thing to do, I'm certainly not going to oppose it. We also voted on judicial nominations today in a brief session. The fact that the JF deadline has passed for committees means that bills that weren't taken up or reported out of the committees are essentially dead for this session. They could be brought back in the form of amendment later on or by certain means, but it's unlikely. One of the bills of great interest to many people in the state that's in that category was the assisted suicide bill, a bill that set up a procedure for the state in consultation with physicians to allow somebody to choose to take their own life. It's been a very controversial bill up here. It's attracted a lot of attention. I've received a great deal of correspondence on it. I have been an opponent of the assisted suicide bill, although I'm very sensitive to the situations that have led people to support it. I feel that I'm not comfortable with setting up a new governmental process for something which is really a very personal decision, a decision I'd really rather see made between individuals and their families and their doctors, not involving a state agency, not involving a bureaucracy. But that bill, once again, seems to be dead for this session. Another bill that came up you might have read about recently concerned the closure of the Middlesex Community College campus in Meriden. It was proposed by the Board of Regents that as a cost savings move that this Meriden campus be closed. It's serves about 600 students, and the state has invested a fair amount of money in renovating the building involved and still has a lease that will go on for a couple of years whether we use the campus or not. The savings on the closure of this campus were relatively small, something in the area of $700,000 or $800,000 over 2 years. I supported an amendment that came out last week which would say that campuses can only be closed with legislative permission. I don't know if that in itself is the proper way to go about it, but one question that it raises is the wisdom of the Board of Regents, which oversees higher education, in making decisions like this. And I might say generally the necessity for us to have a Board of Regents. When I spoke in favor of this amendment which would prohibit the closing of the campus, I said, here we are spending tens of millions of dollars on a bureaucracy in the form of the Board of Regents to have them make decisions and then overriding the decisions. To my mind, it would be better for us not to have that bureaucracy, to save the money. And if we want to save a few $100,000 in the community college system, I'd rather save it in the administrative functions of the Board of Regents, which don't educate any students, which don't counsel any students, which merely have to do with administration, rather than have a direct service like teaching courses in Meriden eliminated. The last thing I'll mention briefly is the ongoing budget situation. Over the last couple of weeks, the subcommittees of the Appropriations Committee have been making their recommendations to the chairs of the Appropriations Committee. I serve on several of those subcommittees, and in most cases the subcommittees have advised adding money back into the governor's budget. From where I sit on human services and public health, on programs involving mental health, addiction services, community services for the developmentally disabled, for drug treatment. I do not want to see those programs cut so badly that they no longer can function properly. I think if there's savings to be found, it's got to be found within the government itself, not in the money we pass through to other service providers, but in the bureaucracy that exists here in Hartford and throughout the state. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what is going to happen, and what I've been saying to you since November, is the Appropriations Committee will add a fair amount of money back into the budget. The Finance Committee will then come up with a tax package, and at some point, it may not be before June 3rd, it may be in July or August, the legislature on Democratic votes will pass a tax increase. I think that although that may relieve the pain of some of these unfortunate cuts for our state as a whole and for our state going forward, it is the wrong way to go. We can't keep increasing taxes because it's only going to continue to worsen our economic situation. The answer is to look at savings in places like the Board of Regents, which I've just discussed. And to go back to the state employees who, when they made a deal with Governor Malloy 4 years ago, promised hundreds of millions of dollars in savings, which have not been realized. And we should try to collect on those debts and find the obvious areas of waste before we go looking to reduce services to needy people in our society. So, it's Joe Markley from the State Capitol, and I will be back to you next week or the week after with another report. Thanks for your attention.